The Wealthy Barber, Everyone's Common Sense Guide to Becoming Financially Independent, by David Chilton. Picture this: you desperately need life-changing advice, the kind that could completely reshape your future and set you on the path to wealth and security. Where would you go? Maybe to some fancy consultant in a glass tower? A famous professor at an ivy-covered university? Here's the twist. What if the smartest financial mind in town wasn't found in any of those places? What if he was standing behind a barber's chair, scissors in hand, sweeping hair off a checkered floor in a tiny shop on Main Street? Sounds crazy, right? But that's exactly the genius premise behind a book that's quietly sold over 2 million copies. Not through slick advertising campaigns, but because people couldn't stop telling their friends about it. We're talking about The Wealthy Barber by David Chilton, a book where a young guy, completely clueless about money, discovers the secrets to financial independence from the last person you'd expect, his neighborhood barber. David Chilton himself is pretty interesting. He wasn't some Wall Street hotshot. He was just a regular guy who noticed something alarming. Most people, even the ones with decent jobs and good intentions, had no clue how to handle money. He saw that the finance world had been deliberately made confusing, stuffed with intimidating charts and fancy jargon designed to make ordinary folks feel stupid. So he decided to do something radical, make personal finance simple, approachable, and dare I say it, actually enjoyable. By the time we're done here, you're going to understand the single most powerful wealth-building secret out there. It's so simple you might laugh, but so effective that if you actually follow it, financial success becomes almost inevitable. You'll discover why traditional budgeting is basically designed to fail, and you'll learn a painless method that works backwards from everything you've been taught. Best of all, you'll walk away with a crystal-clear action plan you can start tomorrow, even on an average salary, to begin your own journey toward financial independence. This isn't just a book summary. It's an invitation to completely rethink your relationship with money and your future. So get comfortable, and let's head to a little barbershop where the haircuts are affordable, but the wisdom, absolutely priceless. Our story opens with a guy named Dave. He's 28, teaches for a living, happily married to Sue, and they've got their first baby on the way. He loves sports, hanging with friends, and generally enjoying life. But when it comes to money, Dave is, by his own admission, completely lost. Mortgages, retirement planning, insurance. He's never given any of it serious thought. His financial strategy, if you can even call it that, has basically been try to get by. But now there's a baby coming, and suddenly the weight of responsibility hits him like a freight train. One afternoon, he's flipping through a magazine and stumbles on one of those financial planning quizzes. Questions like, is your will current, and how will you fund your kids' education, feel like punches to the gut. He can't answer most of them. He doesn't even understand half of them. Right there, he has this terrifying flash of the future. Him, Sue, and their kids, homeless and desperate. In that moment, he makes a decision. He needs to figure this out. So he does what most of us would do. He decides to ask his dad. His father's a high school principal, solid and dependable, someone who's always taken care of the family. Dave figures he must know something about managing money after all these years. That weekend, Dave sits down with his father, bracing himself for a long, probably boring talk about pinching pennies and tracking expenses. But what his dad tells him is completely unexpected. His father admits something surprising. For most of his life, he didn't know anything about money either. He and Dave's mom lived paycheck to paycheck, their only financial rule being, don't go into debt. They were just like everyone else, financially clueless, because nobody, certainly not school, had taught them one of life's most critical skills. It wasn't until about 6 years ago that he finally learned the basics, and when he did, he was amazed at how straightforward it all was. Dave leans forward. So what happened? Who taught you? His father smiles and launches into a story. 6 years back, with some inheritance money in hand and the kids grown, he knew he needed professional guidance. He was at the local barbershop, Miller's, getting a trim, and mentioned his situation to another regular customer named James Murray. a guy who'd worked as both a stockbroker and insurance agent before making it big in real estate. Dave's dad asked him straight up, "Who's the best financial planner in town?" James Murray grinned and said, "The best financial planner in town is the guy currently holding a razor to your throat." Dave's jaw drops. "Roy, our barber Roy." His dad nods. "Exactly, Roy Miller. Over several months while cutting my hair, Roy taught me everything I needed to know. And now, your mom and I are in great shape financially." How could a barber be a financial genius? Here's the thing about Roy Miller. He was never meant to be an ordinary barber. In high school, he was the golden boy, smart, athletic, funny, voted most likely to succeed. He was headed to law school when tragedy struck. His father dropped dead from a heart attack, leaving the family with virtually no savings, no pension, and barely any insurance. At just 19, Roy had to abandon college and take over his father's barbershop to support his mom and younger sister. Shaken by how vulnerable his family had been, Roy promised himself he'd never make the same mistakes. He devoured every book on money he could find, but they all focused on what to do with wealth once you had it, not how to build it from nothing. Then he remembered something his father used to say. If you want to learn something, watch someone who's already doing it successfully. So Roy sought out the richest man in town, a guy named Maurice White. Mr. White, who owned half the commercial real estate downtown, took a liking to the earnest young barber. He told Roy something incredible. "I'll teach you the golden secret of financial success in 1 hour." And in that single hour, Roy learned a lesson that would eventually make him a millionaire on a barber's salary. Dave's dad refuses to spill the secret. "Roy teaches it better than anyone," he says. "He's expecting you tomorrow. Just listen, and you'll never have to worry about money again." The next morning, Dave shows up at Miller's barbershop with his sister Kathy and his best friend Tom, all of them curious and more than a little skeptical. And that's where their real education begins. Ours too. Roy Miller greets them warmly. He's not what you'd picture when you think millionaire. He's just a regular guy in a modest barbershop, surrounded by his weekend regulars. But when he starts talking about money, his straightforward wisdom is electric. Financial planning isn't as complicated as everyone makes it, he tells them. It's definitely not about budgeting every penny of your life away. Honestly, very few people get rich through budgeting, and the ones who do aren't exactly fun at parties. Tom, the eternal skeptic, jumps in. "So if we're not budgeting, how do we save money?" Roy's eyes light up. "That's the golden secret. That's what old Mr. White taught me all those years ago." He tells them about sitting down with the wealthiest man in town. Mr. White looked at him and said something remarkably simple. "Wealth beyond your wildest dreams is possible if you follow one rule. Invest 10% of everything you make for long-term growth. Follow that one guideline and someday you'll be very rich." "That's it?" Tom looks visibly disappointed. It sounds way too simple. But then Roy reveals the magic hiding in that simplicity, the incredible power of compound interest. He turns to Kathy with a question. "If you invested $200 every month for 30 years and earned an average 15% annual return, how much do you think you'd end up with?" Kathy does some quick mental math. "Maybe $200,000? Roy's eyes twinkle. "Nope. The answer is $1.4 million. They're stunned. Tom immediately fires back with the questions running through everyone's mind. What about inflation? And where am I supposed to get a 15% return? More importantly, where am I going to find $200 a month to save? Roy tackles these one by one, but first he hits them with another mind-blowing example. He asks Dave, if you'd started putting away just $30 a month, basically $1 a day, at 18 years old, and kept it up until 65, earning that same 15%, how much would you have? Dave guesses maybe $70,000. Roy laughs. Close. Try around $2 million. Then comes the kicker. And here's the best part. You actually know someone who did exactly this. 35 years ago, I started saving $30 a month, which was 10% of my income back then. As I made more money, my 10% grew too. The three of you are looking at a very wealthy man. Roy Miller, Their barber is a self-made millionaire, not from some complicated investment scheme, but by following one simple rule consistently over time. But what about Tom's questions? First, the saving part. How can you save money when there's never anything left at the end of the month? This is where Roy introduces the second part of the golden rule, a concept that might be even more important than the first: pay yourself first. He explains that traditional budgeting fails because it's built on a flawed idea that you can save whatever's left after you spend, but life always interferes. A want morphs into a need, and suddenly nothing's left to save. Pay yourself first flips everything upside down. It means treating your savings not as an afterthought, but as your most important expense. The very first thing you do when your paycheck arrives, before rent, groceries, anything, you take 10% off the top and put it away for your future. You make it automatic. Set up an automatic transfer from your checking account that moves the money before you even see it or miss it. Roy promises them something that sounds impossible. If they do this, their lifestyle will barely change. They'll adapt to living on 90% without even noticing. It's like getting a pay cut, except you adjust just as quickly. This single idea, automating your savings so 10% vanishes before you can spend it, unlocks everything else. It removes the need for willpower and discipline, which so often fail us. Now for the second question: where do you put that 10% to get solid returns? Roy simplifies the entire investment world into two categories. You can either be a loaner or an owner. A loaner puts money in savings accounts, certificates of deposit, or bonds, essentially lending money to a bank or government and receiving modest, relatively safe interest in return. An owner, however, buys a piece of a business, whether that's real estate or stocks. Roy is emphatic. Over the long haul, ownership always beats loaning. Why? Because our entire economic system is built on the principle that investing in businesses generates higher returns than parking money in a bank. If that weren't true, the whole economy would collapse. So does that mean you should start picking individual stocks? Absolutely not, Roy warns. He explains that stock picking is incredibly difficult, something even most professionals, including many stockbrokers, aren't particularly good at. It requires a rare mix of courage, intelligence, and an instinct for value that few people possess. So what's the solution for regular folks? Roy's answer is clear: equity-oriented mutual funds. He explains that a mutual fund is simply a professionally managed pool of money from thousands of investors. It offers three massive advantages. First, you get professional management. You're hiring a full-time expert to make decisions for you. Second, instant diversification. Your small monthly contribution gets spread across hundreds of companies in various industries and countries, so you're not betting everything on one horse. Third, it's hands-off. It has what Roy charmingly calls a very low, quote, pain-in-the-butt factor. But what about market crashes and volatility? This is where Roy reveals another piece of magic: dollar-cost averaging. It sounds technical, but the concept is beautifully simple. Since you're investing the same amount every month, you automatically buy more shares when prices are low and fewer when they're high. This means market downturns, which terrify most people, actually work in your favor over time. You're systematically buying shares on sale, month after month, ensuring your average cost is lower than the average price. So the complete 10% solution looks like this: automatically deduct 10% of your income each month and invest it in a well-chosen, diversified mutual fund. And then, forget about it. Let time and compound interest do the heavy lifting. Over the next several months, during regular barbershop visits, Dave, Kathy, and Tom learn the other essential pieces of the financial puzzle. Each lesson builds on the same foundation of simplicity and common sense. First, Roy tackles wills and life insurance. He drops a bombshell. More than half of all people don't have a will, which is asking for trouble. Without one, the state decides how your assets get divided according to rigid formulas that might completely contradict your wishes. A simple will costs just a few $100s and ensures your loved ones are protected the way you want. Then comes life insurance, a topic drowning in confusion. He asks Kathy, who's single with no dependents, how much life insurance she needs. She proudly announces she just bought a $50,000 policy. Roy gently corrects her. The right answer is zero. Life insurance isn't an investment, he explains. It's financial protection for people who depend on you. If nobody relies on your income, you don't need it. It's like buying car insurance without owning a car. For Dave, about to become a father, the situation is different. He needs enough insurance to pay off debts like the mortgage, cover future expenses like college, and provide ongoing income so his family can maintain their lifestyle. And what type of insurance should he buy? Roy cuts through industry jargon with a simple rule: buy term and invest the difference. He explains that expensive cash value policies are just basic term insurance, combined with a forced savings account, and that savings account typically comes with hefty fees and disappointing returns. It's far better to buy the cheapest pure protection available term insurance and invest the money you save in your own 10% fund, where it can truly grow. Next up is retirement planning. Roy emphasizes that the 10% fund is your living the dream money for life's finer things. Retirement is separate. He walks them through different retirement vehicles like IRAs and 401 kiloseconds in plain English. His most urgent advice goes to Tom, who discovers his employer offers a 401k, where they match contributions up to 3% of his salary. Roy tells him bluntly, "You're literally walking away from free money by not contributing." It's the easiest way to save imaginable. They also discuss homeownership. Is renting really throwing money away? Not necessarily, Roy says. For some people, especially singles who don't need much space, renting can be smarter financially if they invest the cost difference. But for a family like Dave's, owning a home is one of the best investments possible, thanks to leverage, using the bank's money, tax benefits, and the fact that it functions as forced savings. Finally, Roy shares his philosophy on everyday spending and saving, and it's surprising. He admits he used to preach about meticulous budgeting and penny pinching, but realized almost nobody actually followed that advice. His thinking evolved. He came to believe that if you're automatically handling the big things, your 10% savings, retirement contributions, and insurance, then how you spend the rest of your discretionary income has surprisingly little impact on your long-term financial future. This is the ultimate freedom the plan provides. It's not about deprivation. It's about setting up an automatic wealth creation system that runs in the background, freeing you to enjoy life without obsessing over every dollar. His one powerful guideline for daily spending is this: a dollar saved is $2 earned. Because of taxes, you need to earn nearly $2 just to take home $1. But a dollar you save through smart shopping stays completely in your pocket. Eventually, Dave, Kathy, and Tom graduate from the Miller School of Financial Planning. Money no longer intimidates them. They have a simple, sensible plan. They feel a sense of control and optimism about their future they never imagined possible. The story ends with them giving Roy a gift, a beautiful painting of his lakeside house, bought with the rewards of his simple plan. On the frame is an engraved plate reading, "The Rewards of Common Sense." When you step back and look at the lessons from the Wealthy Barber, what strikes you isn't their complexity, but their profound simplicity. In a world constantly telling us that wealth is reserved for financial wizards who understand complex market strategies, David Chilton, through Roy's voice, delivers a message of incredible hope. Financial independence is within reach for every single one of us. The book's real genius is that it's not actually about finance, it's about human nature. Roy's plan works because it's designed for real people, not robots. It acknowledges that we lack discipline, get overwhelmed by complexity, and would rather enjoy today than sacrifice everything for a distant tomorrow. The pay yourself first principle is a brilliant psychological hack. It automates success, making saving for the future the default setting rather than a daily battle of willpower. What I find most powerful, especially for someone just starting out, is the sense of empowerment it provides. It demystifies money. It tells you that you don't need to be brilliant or lucky. You just need to follow a few straightforward, common-sense rules consistently over time. The magic isn't in some secret stock tip. The magic is in consistency, the patient, steady accumulation from paying yourself first, month after month, year after year. So what can you do right now to put these ideas into action? It's simpler than you think. First, calculate what 10% of your take-home pay is. Just figure out the number. Don't worry yet about where it'll come from. Just know the number. Second, call your bank or go online and set up an automatic transfer for that amount. Have it move from checking to a separate savings account the day after you get paid. Make it disappear before you can spend it. This single action, taking about 5 minutes, might be the most important financial decision you ever make. Third, if your job offers a 401k or similar retirement plan with employer matching, go to HR tomorrow and sign up. Contribute at least enough to get the full match. As Roy said, it's free money, and turning it down is one of the biggest financial mistakes anyone can make. That's it. Those 3 simple steps are the beginning of everything. They're the foundation on which financial freedom is built. That was a summary of The Wealthy Barber by David Chilton. We've covered the core lessons today, but honestly, a summary is like looking at a photograph of a beautiful landscape. The real magic happens when you walk through it yourself. The power of this book is in the stories, conversations, and quiet moments, where Roy's simple wisdom sinks in and changes how you see things. This summary gives you a map. If anything we've discussed has sparked something in you, I encourage you to grab a copy. Reading it isn't just about learning. It's an experience that can genuinely set you on a new path, one leading to a future free from financial worry. There's a link to the book in the description. Also, if you found this journey valuable, please hit that like button and subscribe. We explore a new, life-changing book from the billionaire's bookshelf in every episode, and subscribing ensures you won't miss the next one. Let's keep learning and growing together.